Good afternoon, and thank you for watching this recorded webinar reviewing the Teaching Strategies Gold OSEP license. This is the first of a series of pre-recorded OSEP webinars that can be located in the Early Childhood Classroom Supports Library. Additionally, you can access the PDF document titled LDOE TS Gold OSEP Guidance and Support, as that document will accompany information shared within each webinar. During this webinar, we will provide background and general information regarding OSEP and federal reporting requirements. We will compare key differences between the early childhood and OSEP licenses, as well as provide a quick overview of both the entry and exit assessment requirements. We will close the webinar by reviewing key responsibilities of the OSEP Administrator and provide links to additional resources. Let's start by reviewing background information for the OSEP license. The Reauthorized Individuals with Disabilities Education Act requires each state to have a performance plan evaluating the state's implementation of Part B services and describe how the state will improve such implementation. Each state reports annually on the performance of its local educational agencies according to targets in its SPP. This report is called the Part B Annual Performance Report. The Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, has identified 20 indicators used to track progress toward meeting state targets. Indicator 7 measures the percent of preschool children ages 3 through 5 with IEPs who demonstrate improved outcomes in the following 3 areas. 1. Positive social emotional skills. 2. Acquisition and use of knowledge and skills. And 3. Use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. In order to measure child outcomes for Indicator 7 in the OSEP license, entry assessment data is compared against exit assessment results to determine the degree to which a child demonstrates improved outcomes in the 3 areas mentioned on the previous slide. All children ages 3 through 5, including children who receive speech services only, must be assessed with the TS Gold OSEP license at least once for every year that they receive early childhood special education services. Now we will review key differences between the early childhood and OSEP licenses. As you will note, the early childhood license includes all publicly funded children birth through 5 years old. The OSEP license is only required for children ages 3 through 5 that are publicly funded and receive early childhood special education or Part B services. While the early childhood license only requires a completion of an abbreviated item set where only 70% of the dimensions require final ratings, the OSEP license requires completion of 61 dimensions, including 1C1 through 1C4. Within the OSEP license, both an entry and exit assessment is required and should be input in conjunction with when the child begins receiving special education services. While documentation and mid-year assessments are not required, it is recommended that a mid-year assessment is completed for any child who receives more than 1 year of special education services. Act 837 was passed in 2014, providing limitations on the collection and sharing of student information, and as a result, required the department to create a system of unique student identification numbers, or a LASID. When children are input into the OSEP license, it is recommended that both the Gold ID and the LASID are added to each child's profile. As you will note in the visual on the right side of the slide, the Gold ID should be input where it is marked identifier, and the LASID should be entered into the student ID field. The next portion of the webinar will review key components of both entry and exit assessments. Additional detailed instructions and live demonstrations for entry and exit assessments will be included in the accompanying webinars. Entry assessments in the OSEP license must be completed within the first 6 weeks of entry into early childhood special education services, including when a child is transitioning from Part C to Part B when they turn 3 years old, newly identified as eligible under Part B even after a child has turned 3, entering early childhood special education services from another state, or re-entering Part B services after an exit assessment was completed. If a child continues to receive services beyond 1 year, an entry assessment should be completed once a year for every year that the child receives special education services. Teachers and service providers can begin the entry assessment in the TS Gold OSEP license immediately after the child begins to receive services. When a child is being entered into the OSEP license, the entry date should be entered as the date the child record began receiving or will start receiving special education services. The checkpoint period in which the Part B entry date falls will be used as the entry assessment. If the child record does not have final checkpoint ratings in the entry date check period, the next consecutive checkpoint period that includes final ratings will be used for the entry assessment. All checkpoint dates are aligned with the Early Childhood Gold license. The following information will provide an overview of exit assessment requirements. Exit assessments must be completed before a child can be exited from the OSEP license. An exit assessment should be completed within 6 weeks of the following: a child withdraws from early childhood special education services, a child is turning 6 years old, or a child is matriculating to kindergarten. Once an exit assessment is complete, the child can successfully be exited from the OSEP license. It's important to note that if a child will still be receiving services in the kindergarten setting, they should still be exited from the OSEP license. Exiting these children will ensure that they are no longer included in the Part B OSEP federal reporting. Exiting a child from OSEP will not change the status, coding, funding, or classification of the special education kindergarten program. We will now review key responsibilities of the OSEP Administrator. Each LEA should determine a district or charter early childhood special education supervisor or director to manage the responsibility of the OSEP license. LDOE staff will assist LEAs in setting up accounts in the OSEP license for administrators who will be responsible for setting up accounts for their staff. The OSEP Administrator is also responsible for the following: ensuring all teachers and service providers have a TS Gold OSEP account and have been trained, determining who will create and manage children's portfolios, as only one portfolio per child is allowable, and overseeing the entry and exit data process to ensure that reliable and valid information is provided by teachers and other practitioners. Now we will take a look at some of the administrator and support features within the OSEP license. This is the main dashboard for any user that logs into Teaching Strategies Gold OSEP. To navigate the dashboard as an administrator, you can click on your initials on the top right corner and look for Administration in the drop-down menu. Once you click on Administration, you'll be relocated to a page with the selectable navigation menu for a number of tasks, including adding users, classes, and children. Guidance for these tasks will be included in a subsequent webinar titled Administrator Getting Started Checklist. To get back to the main page, simply click on the My Teaching Strategies icon on the top left of the screen. Some key resources to pay attention to can be found on the lower left of the main page. Once you click on the question mark, a small dashboard will populate that includes the support portal and back to school checklist, which is designed specifically for Louisiana users. Clicking on the support portal will allow all users to search for instructional videos and how-to webinars for OSEP-related topics. Additionally, users can submit a case should you have any technical questions that need to be resolved. The next slide will outline resources that were developed to support OSEP administrators. The TS Gold OSEP Administrator contact list provides an updated list of all current administrators to support communication of transfer requests. If there are any updates to your OSEP administrator, please contact Brittany Braun. The additional resources can be found on the Early Childhood Classroom Supports Library. It is recommended that OSEP administrators review the updated OSEP webinars for additional information and live demonstrations regarding getting started, managing, and monitoring the license. For any additional questions, please reach out to Brittany Braun at brittany.braun@la.gov.